there's a James Mangold film coming. Who, if you don't know who James Mangold is, he's just coming off of Indiana 5, The Dial of Destiny, which also had a trailer this weekend with fucking de-aged Mads Mikkelsen and de-aged Harrison Ford. And a lot of it just looks like the same crazy hijinks that always happens in Indiana Jones and shit. There's fucking Harrison Ford on a horse riding through like a parade or something. So he's going to be doing his own film that's going to depict, and I quote, the first ever Jedi to wield the Force, which this is another thing we're talking about, getting out of like, the Skywalker era of Star Wars and doing something completely original, but in the opposite direction timeline wise than the Rey thing, right? Which I think is like Star Wars needs that like really, really badly to expand the lore.
We need an origin story.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like we have all the everything we've seen in Star Wars so far has just kind of been in medias res. Like even the very first Star Wars movie starts with this Star Destroyer shooting at this little tiny ship. Why are they shooting at it?
Why are they running? They're probably criminals, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
why does this sound like Holst the Planets? I don't understand.
Yes. Having some sort of
That's
origin
an easy joke for anyone wondering.
Yeah. That explains where all of this came from. And given the nature of Star Wars, you could have dozens and dozens of origin stories, but having just one for the Jedi makes a ton of sense to me.
Yeah.
Especially when Disney probably wants to distinguish exactly how the beginnings of their canon and how the Force in the new canon works differently from the old canon. Yeah.
So a couple of things I have about this. I think we have to see Octo, because we know from The Last Jedi and Force Awakens that it was like the first Jedi temple. And when you watch The Last Jedi, which you should because it's a fucking good movie, in that room in the Jedi temple where he talks to Rey, there's a mosaic on the floor of the Prime Jedi, which I think is what they're talking about here, like the first Jedi. And I wouldn't be surprised to see the caretakers from Octo as well somewhere along in here, which I think would be fucking hilarious because they're adorable. And the thing is, you tell a story about the original Jedi. You almost have to tell the story of the original Sith because they happen pretty close together. It was Jedi first, but really close after that. You get, it's like every fucking religion. You start a religion and there's one guy who's like, well, I want to be able to divorce my wife, so I'm going to go off and do this own thing. And that's pretty much what happens with the Sith, right? Like they're like, well, what if I want to force lightning somebody? And they're like, no, you can't be a Jedi and do that. And they're like, well, okay,
I guess I'm not a Jedi.
I guess I won't be a Jedi anymore. Yeah. So I think that they'll probably delve into that a little bit. Kind of like maybe toward the end of the story, how maybe you have these two characters that are really close, and one of them eventually, it's like a fucking Professor Xavier and fucking Magneto thing,
Sure.
So other than that, we don't know very much about it. I should say, this is assuming the movies are made, because I would be an idiot not to mention that Star Wars has now a habit of announcing things that never happen. So hopefully before going to Star Wars Celebration, everyone's like, we know we're doing these, right? Like these are actually happening, because if not, no one's ever going to believe anything we fucking say ever again. So we have to make these happen. So
I imagine all of these are 3 to 6 years off at least.
Oh yeah.
So
I mean,
they have some time to do some writing and rewriting and make sure they're really happy with their scripts before they get into the actual expensive part of making the movies.
Right. I don't think any of the films they announced are even in pre-production yet. I'm sure the Dave Filoni one has some work that they've done on it already. But the other two, I don't think that they've even really started pre-production with.